Ladies and gentlemen, once again, good morning. We continue now with the first session of presentations of the working groups. I would like to have your attention. I'm pleased to invite Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, to moderate this first panel. Please, Rabbi.
Thank you, Gideon. And also on behalf of all of the participants, I want to thank your fantastic team for running such a well-organized event. It's my honor to be moderating the presentation of three of the important issues that brought us here. But I also think we have a concept called Hakarat HaTov, which means we have to be grateful for those who helped bring us here. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the Jewish activists' yellow pages, but I do think it's appropriate to mention the trailblazers, Erwin Kotler, Natan Sharansky. I think also take the privilege of mentioning my colleague, Dr. Shimon Samuels, who's based in Paris, and someone that many of us rely on for important daily information, our good friend and colleague, Dr. Gerald Steinberg. And I'm sure everybody here knows that there's a brand new BDS report that's available this morning. I don't know if Gerald's here yet, but if you are, you can stand up. People who like to get copies are welcome to get them. So we welcome them, and I don't know about you, but I find this to be, when we get together, a very humbling experience to also be among people who come from Budapest and Amsterdam and Venezuela, from the communities that sometimes are under the gun, and to see proud Jews come and represent them and us here is a humbling and empowering experience all at once. The rules of the game for this hour are pretty straightforward. We've got 15 minutes to do Kol HaTorah Kula on one foot. And so for the first presentation, Anti-Semitism in the Guise of Delegitimization and Anti-Zionism, which is co-chaired by Dr. Pascal Markovich and Dr. Mitchel Bard, I call upon Dr. Bard to present the findings of that particular working group. Mitch.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Cooper. It's good to see everyone here this morning. The delegitimizers are basically misfits, liars, and anti-Semites. And we are defeating them, and we're going to continue to defeat them. We're not going to play on their field. We're going to play on our field and set the agenda and focus on the story of Israel, a free democracy that upholds fundamental human rights and religious freedom, a country with a workforce of Jews and Arabs that has created the world's most innovative economy. To play on our field, we've suggested a number of different steps. One is to use our comparative advantage by dividing up responsibilities as much as possible to have the organizations that work best and have the best influence and contacts with unions to do that. Those that have the best influence and contacts with the UN to focus on that, and to try to avoid as much as possible the kind of duplication and waste of resources that too often we engage in. Secondly, we want to make sure that we are well informed about what is going on around the world in terms of the delegitimizers and their supporters, and to do more to investigate and monitor them. Third is we want to improve our rapid response capabilities to make sure that when there is any kind of a threat, that we have the ability to quickly mobilize resources, work with the local community, and try to devise the best possible response that will maximize our benefits and ensure the defeat of the delegitimizers. We want to make sure that the legal measures that are at our disposal are used and improved to make sure that discriminatory practices are not permitted, and in those states and countries where it's possible, to make them illegal. We want to also make sure we're educating public officials so they understand what delegitimization is all about and understand the distinctions between criticism of Israel and anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. We want to also let them know how they, the country, the local state, can benefit from the cooperation with the State of Israel in a variety of fields, whether it's agriculture, education, environment, but to make sure that they understand that there's something in it for them to have a relationship with Israel, that they can truly benefit economically, socially, and in a variety of ways from any kind of relationship. And we want to enhance cooperation at all levels, between campuses, between state and local governments, and between national governments as well. We believe it's important to focus on educating the media, because too often journalists are easily swayed by a narrative when they don't know the facts, they don't know the history, and they don't understand the distinctions between criticism of Israel again and delegitimization. We think there's a need to establish some strategic guidelines to the extent possible, where instead of seeing every issue that comes across our desk or email as a matter for a all-out reaction, to a more sophisticated approach where we can evaluate whether a particular activity requires a ignoring of the event so as not to give it publicity and air that it otherwise wouldn't get, and have a range of activities from that up to what you might call the maximum response of giving an all-out effort to oppose something. And that, as I say, too often the first response is to have the all-out kind of nuclear option rather than to carefully evaluate whether that is needed or is counterproductive. And the key to doing this is to work with the local officials and to make sure that the locals who have to live with the consequences of any strategy have the input into the kind of strategy that's adopted. A big priority, and I'm sure the campus group is also going to talk about this, is to fight delegitimization on college campuses, particularly the academic legitimization of the BDS movement, so that we want to see that free speech is respected, but at the same time, academic institutions, departments within universities recognize that there are distinctions between academic programs and scholarly programs and programs that are primarily devoted to hate speech. We also believe in the need to have a drumbeat of activity to improve and to publicize Israel's positive image, that too often the other side has this drumbeat of repetition of negative language and imagery about Israel, and we spend our time responding to it. And instead, we would like to see a very positive agenda. One of the things that we've done is create something called the Israel Calendar, israelcalendar.org, which creates a different theme about Israel for each month. And if each community and JCC and campus and federation focuses on that one theme each month, that will create the kind of snowball effect of repetition of the positive imagery and discussion about Israel. And whether it's done by a calendar or by some other method, the key is repetition of the key messages that we want to convey rather than simply to respond to what the delegitimizers are saying. Social media is an important tool in this time. Andre and his task force will have a lot to say about that. What we mainly want to focus on or emphasize is the need to be more involved in social media. Again, not only in terms of responding to what the other side is doing on social media, to be more proactive, to engage the audience in the connection between Israel and the people, or the Jewish people and Israel, to give the audience confidence in expressing the connection to Israel, and to engage people in a discussion of Israel, their connection to Israel, and the impact of anti-Israel propaganda on their lives. We want to also explore options of boycotting the boycotters to see if there are possibilities for us to basically give them a little bit of their own medicine and to show that it's inconsistent to allow hate speech to go unresponded to. One of the most important things I think we recommend is to increase funding to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and specifically for the departments that deal with anti-Semitism and delegitimization, because they're seriously underfunded and understaffed and need the resources to be able to put on conferences like this, to continue to have contact with us, to mobilize resources. And this is something I hope the government will take up as it moves through the budgetary process. We also want to help the targets of BDS. Too often we focus on the BDSers, but we don't focus enough on who's being targeted, so that, for example, when an artist is planning to come to Israel, they immediately are bombarded by threats. They're intimidated. They're getting all sorts of messages telling them that it's not in their interest to come to the State of Israel. We have to be proactive in contacting those same artists and helping them to better understand that they're being told lies, that they're being intimidated, and that this is a place that is safe for them to visit. It's a place where they can contribute to the peace process and interest of peace, and that they shouldn't be discouraged from coming. One of the last things is we need to share knowledge, especially with smaller communities, that it's sometimes taken for granted in communities like Washington, New York, here in Israel, London, Paris, that we have very strong communities, we have very strong communal organizations, but there are many other countries and communities that don't have the same populations, the same community organizations to help them, and we have to, in the bigger communities, do more than we have been doing in terms of sharing our information. And finally, we need to document our victories and case studies, because we are winning this battle, in my view, and that rather than allow the other side to trumpet what they claim to be victories, and more often than not are not victories at all, and to instead make very clear that they are losing. They are losing because their argument is one that is incompatible with the pursuit of peace, incompatible with free speech, and incompatible with the anti-discriminatory policies of governments, campuses, and human rights advocates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Dr. Markovich, and your team, all the activists who focused on this important topic. What we're going to try to do is to get the three presentations made. There are a lot of overlapping concerns in any event, and then we hope to have a few minutes left for important cross-pollination with the activists in the audience.